news. I'm Lee-Jun in Seoul. The 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics is set to open its doors this Friday, and there's interest over which foreign guests will be coming and who from North Korea will attend the Games. For now, we know that Kim Yong-nam, the head of North Korea's parliament, is coming to South Korea for the Olympics, and he is the highest-level North Korean official to visit the South since 2014. This week, we'll also be seeing a large group of North Korean performers and cheerleaders crossing the border, with the North Korean art troupe's first performance to be held at the Gangneung Art Center on Thursday on the eve of the Winter Games. And before we sit down with an expert to talk more about issues surrounding the Olympics, let's first connect to Devin Whiting at the News Center for a quick look at what's making the news at this hour. Devin, take us away.
Hi, June. Well, we start with some breaking news. The vice chairman of Samsung Electronics, Jeong Yong, is being released after nearly a year in jail, following an appeals court decision to drastically reduce his sentence for bribery. He was convicted last year of bribing former President Park Geun-hye in the scandal that ended her time in office and landed her behind bars. The Seoul High Court has decided to put Jeong Yong on probation for 4 years with a suspended prison sentence of 2.5 years, half the time he was originally going to serve. He was expected to be released directly from the courtroom and not have to return to the Seoul Detention Center, where he was held for 353 days. In other news, the top nuclear envoys of South Korea and the United States have just met in Seoul and are now continuing discussions about the situation on the Korean peninsula. During the opening remarks of the meeting, Joseph Yoon, the U.S. representative, said he had met with several Seoul officials over the last 4 days and that everyone seemed happy with the level of cooperation and collaboration between the two countries so far. Lee Do-hoon, the Korean envoy, also expressed Seoul's satisfaction with their joint efforts to make the Pyeongchang Olympics an Olympics of peace. However, both agreed there is much to discuss when it comes to how to handle the situation with North Korea beyond Pyeongchang. The two were also expected to discuss North Korea's upcoming military parade and the possibility of some kind of interaction between U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, who's in South Korea, and North Korea's ceremonial head of state Kim Yong-nam, who's now confirmed to be attending the Olympics opening ceremony on Friday. The two Koreas are fielding a joint women's ice hockey team in the Olympics, and they had their first and only practice match on Sunday against Sweden. It was a loss for the Koreas, but not a bad result for a squad that only had a few days to train together before playing a team that's one of the best in the world. Lee Ji-won has more.
The joint Korean women's ice hockey team took to the rink together on Sunday for their first game, with the Winter Olympics only a matter of days away. The unification flag was raised instead of South Korea's national flag, the taegukgi, and the Korean folk song Arirang filled the rink in place of a national anthem. Playing against fifth-ranked Sweden, Team Korea lost a friendly 3-1. Though the head coach was only required to include 3 North Korean players in the 22-woman roster, 4 of the 12 North Koreans who joined the squad were fielded in the game, 3 forwards and 1 in defense. One of Pyongyang's best players, Jeong Yong, even made it to the second line. And at a press conference right after the game, Team Korea's head coach said that there would be more chances like this if the North Korean players continue to train hard.
After watching the players practice, Soo-hyun, the player that was sitting up here next to us, she actually made it to the second line. She sees the game well, she plays tough, she's fast. If they continue to work hard and continue to learn our systems, I can see them staying in, second line.
While North Korea's head coach Park Chol-ho and forward Jeong Soo-hyun were also at the press conference, they only mentioned their determination for the upcoming games and left the table without answering any questions.
If the South and North Koreans come together in every game and work harder and harder, I'm sure that there will be a good result. Also, I hope the Games will be an opportunity for Korea to show its power to the world.
With North Korean players showing their determination to learn the systems, the South Korean players and the head coach rated North Korean players' performances on Sunday highly. But there are still struggles ahead.
Like our coach said, the language is still the major issue. During our games or our training, we say something, but the North Korean players don't understand, and it's the same for us. But it's something that'll get better with more training together.
After the game, the ice hockey team left for the Gangneung Olympic Village, where they will live and train for the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Korea's joint ice hockey team have their first game at the Winter Olympics on February 10th against Switzerland. 이지원, Arirang News.
South Korea's National Assembly will kick off its first interpellation session of 2018 later this afternoon. Over the next 3 days, lawmakers will question government officials about a range of areas, including foreign affairs, the economy, and social issues. Our Kim Min-ji has a preview.
Top government officials, including Prime Minister Lee Na-kyun, will be fielding questions on pending issues from rival lawmakers over the next 3 days. It's the first parliamentary interpellation session of the year and the second since President Moon Jae-in took office in May last year. Rival lawmakers are expected to clash as they put the administration's performance under the microscope.
The interpellation session kicks off today, and I hope that it will be a dignified session so that it becomes a good opportunity for the government to better serve the people.
Monday's Q&A session will cover the areas of politics, unification, foreign affairs, and security. It will be followed by economy-related topics on the second day and education, culture, and social issues on the third and final day. Topping the list of the most contentious issues is amending the country's constitution. The ruling Democratic Party of Korea is expected to stress that it will be aimed at bettering people's lives and that a referendum must be held alongside local elections in June. However, opposition parties will likely argue that the core of the revision should be reducing presidential powers, but they claim the ruling bloc has no intention of doing that. Another key topic is inter-Korean relations. The ruling party will likely call for opposition support so as to foster peace on the peninsula, starting with North Korea's participation at the upcoming PyeongChang Winter Olympics. But the opposition bloc claims the Games are overshadowing the regime's nuclear ambitions and that Seoul is letting Pyongyang have its own way. Also mired in dispute is the recent minimum wage hike. The ruling party is expected to stress that it was needed to better people's lives and that they have introduced support funds for micro-businesses to help them deal with the extra financial burden. However, the opposition will likely claim that it's not doing either side any good and it's actually causing more job losses. The opposition will also criticize a string of other policies, including regulations on cryptocurrency exchanges and measures to cool the property market, claiming these initiatives have not brought the changes promised by the government. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
North Korea will be sending its ceremonial head of state Kim Yong-nam to South Korea on Friday. He will lead a high-level delegation to the Pyeongchang 2018 Winter Olympics. In the morning, the advance team for North Korea's art troupe entered South Korea to prepare for the North's cultural events. Our Ji Myung-gil has more.
Kim Yong-nam, North Korea's ceremonial head of state, will lead a 22-member delegation to South Korea for a 3-day visit beginning this Friday. Kim, who is the head of parliament in North Korea, will attend the PyeongChang Winter Olympics opening ceremony, which will also be attended by U.S. Vice President Mike Pence. South Korea's Unification Ministry said Kim will lead a delegation of 3 other government officials and 18 support staff. He will be the highest level official to visit the South in 4 years. While in the South, the North delegation will likely attend the United Korean women's ice hockey team's match this Saturday and even possibly meet with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. South Korea's Blue House welcomed the visit of North Korea's high-level delegation led by Kim Yong-nam. The Blue House spokesperson stressed the trip reflects North Korea's sincere efforts to improve inter-Korean relationships and to make the PyeongChang Winter Olympics a success. The North's participation in the Games is widely seen as a diplomatic maneuver by Pyongyang as it faces growing international pressure and sanctions over its nuclear and missile programs. In preparation for the North cultural events, a 23-member advance team arrived in the South using the Western land route on Monday morning. The members are a working group to prepare for the concerts that will be held this Thursday in the Olympic host city of Gangneung and in Seoul this coming Sunday. The group brought musical instruments and other equipment necessary for the performances. On Tuesday, the leader of the Samjin Orchestra, Hyun Song-ul, will lead the rest of the 140-member art troupe into South Korea by Mangyongbong 92 ferry, using the eastern coastal route. Kim Yong-nam, Arirang News.
And to tell us more about what we can expect this week as the opening of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics draws near, Dr. Paul Janish, a researcher at the Yonsei Institute for North Korean Studies, joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Hi.
All right, so there's been a lot of interest over which high-ranking officials will make their way to South Korea from North Korea for the Olympics. And we now know that Kim Yong-nam, the ceremonial head of state, is going to lead a 22-member delegation to the South for the Olympics. So tell us more about who he is.
Mr. Kim Yong-nam is the official head of the state of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, because he's the head of the North Korean parliament called the Supreme People's Assembly, and he's the chairperson. So on the paper and by law, he is the highest ranked official representing the North Korean government. In that regard, the Ministry of Unification of South Korean governments expressed the appreciation that North Korea has shown sincerity to help PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games a huge success by sending such a high-ranked official, probably the highest ranked North Korean official since 2014. And he is a very interesting choice because his name was not really mentioned amongst the candidates to lead the delegation from North Korea.
Right.
Other names referred to as a potential leader of the delegation include half-sister of the chairman Kim Jong-un, Kim Yo-jong, or the Choi Hui, the head of the athletic department of the North Korean Workers' Party, and the Choi Ryong-hae, the de facto number 2 guy in North Korean system. But choosing Mr. Kim Yong-nam seems to indicate that the Kim Jong-un government took the kind of middle-of-the-road approach. It is clear that North Korean government is not really ready to engage in any direct or all-out negotiations dealing with the denuclearization of North Korea, because Chairman Kim Yong-nam, although he is the head of the parliament, does not have the prerogative or the deep technological knowledge about North Korea's intercontinental missile programs or nuclear programs. So the maximum that we can expect from Mr. Kim Yong-nam is to deliver kind of personal and secret message to the South Korean government, and South Korean government may play the role as a bridge to deliver the message to the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence, and receiving the return message from Vice President Pence to Mr. Kim Yong-nam, which is not really likely because Vice President has made it really clear that one, the era of strategic patience toward North Korea has long ended, and I'm going to reiterate this message very clearly during my stay in Korea during the Olympic Games. And the Trump administration even made a request, according to the South Korean media reports, that Vice President would not be even coincidentally bump into any North Korean officials. So it'll be a very difficult situation for South Korean government to play an objective mediator. And the Vice President is going to be accompanied with the father of the deceased U.S. student, the late Mr. Otto Warmbier. So the message is really clear that Washington is not going to let loose of North Korea for its gross human rights violation as another weapon to put additional pressure on North Korea. So unless we see Mr. Choi Ryong-hae coming to Seoul in some capacities, then we cannot really expect that there will be some tangible momentum actually undergoing between Washington and Pyongyang to actually discuss how to settle their confrontation on North Korea's missile and the nuclear programs.
What are the chances of us seeing Choi Ryong-hae possibly making his way to South Korea for the Olympics then?
It is up to the strategic decision made by the Kim Jong-un, whether Kim Jong-un government is going to make the bold decision or inevitable decision that it is time to do something bold and drastic in order to escape from the mounting pressure and pain created by the multiple economic sanctions imposed on North Korea. But as long as the Kim Jong-un government does not reach that tipping point, then it is likely that the government is not going to show any telltale sign that it is genuinely interested in actually sitting down and talking with the United States exactly on the issues of its missile programs and nuclear weapon programs.
Now, what's interesting is that we heard of reports today that North Korea dismissed Hwang Byung-seo, its former head of North Korean military's powerful general political bureau. So what's going on here?
What's going on here? It is a further consolidation of power in the hands of the Kim Jong-un as an absolute leader of North Korea.
Okay.
Kim Jong-un's power position has not been wavered at all. But dismissal of not only General Hwang Byung-seo, who used to be #2 guy in North Korean government, but also the chief of the National Security Bureau, Mr. Kim Won-hong, at the same time means that the kind of a trilateral system composed with General Hwang Byung-seo and Mr. Kim Won-hong and Mr. Choi Ryong-hae has been changed to the Seoul authority of Choi Ryong-hae as a #2 man, just under Kim Jong-un. Because now Choi Ryong-hae assumes 8 most powerful positions inside the Korean Workers' Party and the administrative branch of the North Korean government, including the chief of the People's Ideological Guidance Bureau, which used to be only assumed by immediate family member of the Kim Il-sung. So the fact that somebody whose last name is not Kim assumes that very important position, which monopolizes the right to decide their personal decisions for party officials, means that Choi Ryong-hae seems to have the very concrete, trust from Kim Jong-un as a #2 man.
Now, going back to what we heard in the report, so North Korea's art troupe and cheerleaders and reporters will be making their way to South Korea this week with the 140-member Samjiyeon Orchestra scheduled to come to Korea here in South Korea on Tuesday. Now, what can we expect from their performances?
Well, it's unfortunate that the Samjiyeon Orchestra canceled the another performance, which was supposed to take place in the Mountain Gangneung tour site,
right?
Allegedly in protest to the very, nasty reporting of their, North Korea's propaganda. So it'll be the only performance by the Samjiyeon Orchestra inside South Korea. But it seems to indicate that the Samjiyeon Orchestra is going to be playing really safe. It suggested that it's going to play some South Korean songs and the traditional songs that will satisfy a wide range of diverse audiences during their performance in South Korea. So I don't see any unexpected happening will take place, something similar to the sudden cancellation of the performance in Beijing.
Right.
But that we have to see things in the right perspective. The nice performance by the Samjiyeon Orchestra does not make North Korea's participation in the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games to be a successful bridge. They will connect the improvement of inter-Korean relations and the improvement of North Korea's image as a peace-loving country, and the beginning of the meaningful diplomatic engagement of North Korea to actually discuss the most important issue, which is the denuclearization of North Korea.
Now, we have the military parade that you just said coming up on the eve of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, and U.S. Undersecretary of State Steve Goldstein actually said during a press briefing that the U.S. would rather not see this parade happen. Now, at this point, we're kind of wondering, how big of a parade are we expecting here?
It is reported that the military parade in celebration of 70th anniversary of the establishment of armed forces in North Korea is going to be as big as the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the establishment of the Korean Workers' Party that took place 2 years ago in 2015, I believe. That almost 100,000 Pyongyang citizens and the soldiers will be participating in the military parade. And North Korean media made a very interesting explanations in response to the warning from Washington that, listen, 70th anniversary of the establishment of the forces has been decided 70 years ago, right?
Oh, okay.
And you cannot change the date that you celebrate your birthday.
Anniversaries.
And, just like South Korea always celebrates the establishment of its armed forces on the first day of October every year. So it is just an unfortunate coincidence that we are going to have the military parade on the eve of the opening of the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games. But and then going ahead with such a massive military parade is not going to improve the image of North Korea, especially if new kinds of intercontinental ballistic missiles, such as the Hwasong-13, the three-stage long-range ballistic missile, which has not been unveiled yet, or the new kind of the submarine-launched ballistic missile will be displayed during the military parade, then it will be just putting another bucket of the cold water and to dampen the hope for dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang.
Now, a lot of us have our eyes on what would happen after the Olympics, especially if this positive momentum between the two Koreas will continue even after the Olympics and Paralympics end, as well as, I know you mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, about a possibility of a real dialogue between the U.S. and North Korea, whether it be during the Olympics or after the Olympics.
Well, I like to be optimistic, but I have not seen new signs, signal from either side of Pyongyang and Washington. Washington has maintained that during the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games there wouldn't be any diplomatic contact or dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang to discuss denuclearization of North Korea. And considering the fact that the North Korean government did not send a higher-ranked official who actually has the knowledge and the prerogative to make any decisions regarding ICBMs or nuclear weapons, such as Mr. Choi Ryong-hae, but the head of the state as a figure in Mr. Kim Yong-nam. That means that North Korea is not ready to engage in the diplomatic negotiation with Washington. Neither is the United States.
What about with South Korea then, you think?
Well, South Korea still is hoping that the festive mood and the spirit of the peace during the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games would facilitate the public opinion and the opinions of the leaderships, at least on one side of the equation, that being Pyongyang or Washington, to actually engage in any type of dialogue, even for the purpose of probing the intentions of the other side. But yeah, that's a dilemma. The successful PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games and the improvement of the inter-Korean relations do not guarantee the beginning of the next round of the positive development, which is toward the actual issue, denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula.
So we know the Olympics is a global sporting event, but of course there's going to be a lot of foreign diplomacy going on here once President Moon meets with a lot of leaders from different countries, whether it's be high-ranking officials or leaders or not. So tell us more about this.
The conspicuous absence of the top leader must be the Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is not eligible to attend the Olympic Games because of the issues with the IOC, and the President of China, Mr. Xi Jinping. But Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, declared that he is going to attend the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games, despite opposition from the conservative members in the Japanese Diet and the society. And one justification he made for his coming to PyeongChang Olympic Game is that he is going to have thorough discussions about the South Korean government's decision not to proceed with the 2015 joint declaration on the comfort women issue between South Korea and Japan. So he's going to bring up that issue and confront with the Moon Jae-in government about it. But at the same time, since the United States government has encouraged Prime Minister Abe to attend the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games so that the Olympic Games will not be so-called hijacked by North Koreans, there will be pressure imposed by both the United States and Japan on Moon Jae-in government to be more supportive in increasing the international pressure on North Korea right after the end of the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
You're welcome.
And that brings us to the end of our show, but stay tuned to Arirang for more news updates throughout the day. As always, thank you so much for watching and goodbye for now.